At the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am your co-host. And this is radio the way it should be heard. We have live on the line from Washington, D.C., Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., who will entertain your questions. And I have quite a few calls, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get to all of the questions via the email. I will give you the address and the phone numbers that you can get in contact with the show at the appropriate time. Mr. Neely Fuller is the author of the world-famous The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, and that's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. Now, many of you have gotten a book. I have cards and letters, and we really appreciate, and I know really Neely Fuller appreciates you doing that. And more to go. Personally, I feel that, you should get a copy of the book, and you can do so by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And when that screen comes up, you will find all the information necessary for you to purchase the book. And in addition to purchasing that book, there is also an additional word guide which will help you understand words, what people are saying, understand the code even better, and that's for a separate purchase. Again, you can go to you can go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com to get your copies of Neely Fuller's books. And I do understand a new book is coming. I don't know when, but Mr. Fuller is working on that, as also working to make sure that he can get his distribution network available for those overseas, which we've had quite a few calls concerning that. And speaking about that, you've asked and you requested it, and it's going to happen, and that is that we're going to try to expand the compensatory concept for an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program. Now, in order to do that, you need to send all of your donations to K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, that's Columbus, Ohio, 43206, and make it in care of the compensatory concept. We will accept money orders or blank checks, no personal checks, and then we will email you your receipt, and all donations are final. So again, that is K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206, in care of the compensatory concept. We will get it, and when we get enough, we will have enough to expand the show for an additional hour and pay for the show, which is good. Nothing is free. So thank you in advance for your support. Thank you for those who have already made donations, and we thank you for listening. Okay, live on the phone now from Washington, D.C. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you this morning?
I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Good. What would you like to open up today's episode with?
Well, this is Black History Month, and so that also will take in what we call black culture and, by implication, white culture. So I always say that if there are any problems, or if we're addressing anything, it's usually in the form of a problem on presentations like this. So the question would be, what do you need a Black History Month for? That's number one. And what would that entail? What would, if you're talking about Black history, you're also taking into consideration other types of history, and that would include white history. And then you would probably get into some questions about Black culture, which is a part of Black history, because when you go from Black history to Black culture, then you have to ask questions. First of all, what is Black history for, or Black History Month for? How did it come into being, and why do we have it now? And then that would lead into questions and comments about Black culture. That would also lead into questions and comments about white culture. So I was thinking about that early this morning. I mean, what are we doing all this for? This thing called Black history, or Black culture, or white history, or white culture, in order to accomplish what? Because when you institutionalize anything like Black History Month, you're supposed to be trying to do something. And what is it you're trying to do? And and in order to accomplish what? Every move that people make should be for the purpose of trying to accomplish something. And you should be very specific about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, so that you can measure it after you put in all of the time and energy and money and whatnot, doing whatever it is you say that you're trying to do. You should be very, very focused. I should be. Everyone should be. Anytime you are making an effort to accomplish, quote unquote, anything, first of all, what is it you're trying to accomplish? What is supposed to be the finished product? What is it supposed to look like? Do you have any idea of why you're doing what you're doing? And I just wanted to throw these thoughts out to just the general public. What is white culture? What is Black culture? And what is all that supposed to mean at the beginning and the end of each day? In regard to everybody's comings and goings, as regards to all their plans. What is that supposed to mean? What is it supposed to mean? In a functional sense.
In a functional sense.
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Now the phone lines are open, and you can start to dial by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, and I will try to read your question just as you wrote it. Starting off, Mr. Fuller, this person, I guess her name is Tanisha, wrote, I bought both of Mr. Neely Fuller's books. I have read and is studying his work. I have a statement followed by a question. I understand in the code text book what Mr. Fuller means in his definition of religion, a strong belief followed by action. But when I say I am my religion because I have a strong belief in me followed by action for me, most so-called Christian people have a response that I am crazy. So my question is, how can we have a code to live by if the Christian religion is the code that the majority of our people try to live by, which would make most of non-white people code to try to live by some type of religion, and most of the white people code is white supremacy?
Well, if I can answer it in a codified manner, what the code says about religions, period, is first of all, the definition, strong belief backed up by action. So, now if you believe certain things, just state what you believe, what your beliefs are. And your beliefs as pertains to what? See, it's always in the details. Everybody has beliefs. So you say, what do you believe when it comes to 9 areas of activity? This is what you go by. Economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, other people's religions, sex, and war. That just about covers what people actually do every day. See, so you don't get into a whole lot of this, a lot of long, drawn-out, abstract arguments about beliefs. You just say, okay, you have a belief, but belief backed up by what? Action. So what are your actions going to be? See, I mean, whatever your beliefs are, I mean, they're just your beliefs. But what is it that you actually do? So what I have tried to orchestrate or codify in the textbooks and in my presentations is that when it comes to religion, in order that people do not get into endless religious squabbles, try to get an understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that is starting with 3 questions. What is the name of your religion? That's the question that you ask people. If people have a religion, that religion usually has a name. So one person might say Christian, Hebrew, or Jew, or a person might say that I am a Muslim, which means I follow the religion of Islam, the name of my religion of Islam. I am a Hindu, the name of my religion is Hinduism. Okay? Now, that's question number 1. What's the name of your religion? Question number 2, what does your religion require you to do in the 9 areas of activity? So you get an understanding of what a person, is going to actually do. Because if you're not doing anything according to their religion, then what's the point in having the religion? So you want to know, what does your religion require you to do in economics? What does your religion require you to do in education? What type of education system does your religion require you to have? I mean, what things you teach, what things you don't teach. How do the people of your religion entertain themselves? The 3rd area of activity. And then right on through all 9. Entertainment, labor. What kind of work do you do? What kind of work does your religion say you better not do or that you shouldn't do, because that type of work is not in line with your religion? Some types of work might, you might be prohibited from doing on account of that's not the type of work that people of our religion do. That's under labor and law. All religions have laws, so what are the laws of your religion? Do's and don'ts. That's what laws are. All the things you can do, all the things you can't do. Politics. How do you interact with people who in what you call the political field, or do you interact with them at all? Does your religion allow you to vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? To get all the details of the person's religions, other people's religions. What are the sex laws, or do you have any in your religion about, male, female, or other new branches of how does your religion address the new categories of sexuality? I mean, what does it require you to do when it comes to that? Because there's going to be a whole bunch of new sexualities now. So all the popular culture is saying, I mean, it's branching out. It's not just male, female anymore, or just limited to just transgender. It might be dozens and dozens of sexualities. I mean, and so what does your religion say about how to address all of that? And then war, the last area of activity. What does your religion say about when a war breaks out? Or does it allow you to kill people? If so, under what circumstances? And if maybe your religion doesn't allow you to kill people at all, under any circumstance, even in self-defense, you want to know that. And then last but not least, the 3rd question. What does your religion require you to do when you interact with me? And that is what you call the bottom line question.
All righty, the bottom line question. Talktainment Radio is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility that have hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, health, wellness, religion, politics. And here's one that I would like to share with you, and it's called At the Table with Al Warner. Now, host Al Warner is at the table fighting whatever needed for social justice issues and urban education reform. An architect of the CCS Schools Initiative and equity policy, Al has vigorously worked against bad practices and policies to inform district leaders and legislators on the best practices to reform urban education. At the Table with Al Warner is broadcast on Wednesdays on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. Phone lines are open. You can call 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. And also remember, make your donations to the show at KNE World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206, care of the Compensatory Concept, and we will accept money orders or blank checks, no personal checks, and we will email you your receipt, and all donations are final. And again, the purpose is to extend the compensatory concept for an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program. And our goal is to cover 1 year's worth of programming. Let's go to the phone lines. Line number 1, you are up with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, good morning, Brother Bobby and Fuller. My question is, why is it in the code book in economics that they say that victims of racism should not take vacations?
Mr. Fuller?
You make a vacation. That's all. See, we call vacations, what is the definition for a vacation? Usually we think of it in terms of where we work, and we usually associate a vacation as something that you take away from when you are not working. You take a vacation when you are not working. But you can take a vacation while you're working. Lots of people do. The white supremacists understand that. This is why they are very successful, because they blend their work with their play. See, we usually think of work and play. That's a white supremacist concept that they usually put on their slaves. All right, and they say that, okay, well, you're going to have a work period, and then you will have a few hours or a few days set aside every now and then, maybe, just maybe, to do something called play or vacate away from your work, to get away from your work, because I'm driving you all the time. But see, the royalist idea, among the white supremacists, which is a royal concept, is that we royals, we special people, our work and our play is all the same thing. So we're always at play. We're always taking a vacation. And we're always at work. We're always doing both at the same time, because we have scientifically made our work and our play the same thing, which is being supreme. That is our play and our work over all these dark-skinned people throughout the planet. And we enjoy every minute of it. We are on vacation all the time. But we put out the propaganda that vacation is something that's separate from everything else, that work is separate from play. They're not the same thing. You have a time to play and a time to work. The white supremacists said, hey, that's what we put on the rest of the people, our subject people, because we play and work at the same time. Mm-hmm. Our work and our play are simultaneous. That's why we are super successful at what we do, because we're always having fun, dominating people.
All righty. Thank you for your call, caller. Okay, you are listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. That is radio the way it should be heard. On Mr. Bobby, and on the line is Mr. Neely Fuller. We go to line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. What is your question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller, how are you?
Good, sir. Still learning.
Hey, Mr. Fuller, I remember you talking about the white supremacist people glamorizing things so that young black men may lean toward a feminine role, and young black women leaning toward masculine. And these are young white people, too, lately they've been going to this women in combat units and really glamorizing these truck driver training schools. They'd have made these trucks look like an apartment on the inside. A lot of ladies trying. I mean, if that's hell on a man, it's got to be super hell on a woman. Can you picture? I can't picture my mother or sisters in an infantry unit or any kind of a combat swimming role. Or I mean, it just don't make. Can you picture a woman fighting some big man or underwater with a knife? Imagine what happens to a woman in a combat. What these people, even in the training. I just can't. What's the U.S. trying to do? I mean, what are they? They don't have enough men. What is the purpose of women coming in this back-breaking kind of work? Are they trying? And then they act like men. And yeah, I mean, if you get my point,
yes, I do.
And I'm gonna listen off air.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Fuller.
To the extent that the white supremacist has anything to do with this so-called gender scattering or degenderization of non-white people throughout this entire planet. I mean, they got a whole plan for that. They are confusing everything that has to do with non-white people. That's in all areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, all of the areas of activity. And right now, they are definitely centering on and accelerating as fast as they possibly can the process of causing maximum confusion in sexuality among the people of color of the entire planet. That is in a very elaborate, very intricate plan, and they are accelerating that plan, I mean, at as fast a pace as they possibly can. Now, you're correct. They want the black females to become more and more masculinized. I mean, complete with tattoos, the whole works, okay? The swagger, the pants, the boots, the whole thing. Now, then they're going to match these black females with each other, have them all wrapped around each other in a tent. I mean, and kissing and hugging and doing all of whatever it is that they prescribe them to do. I mean, one pretending to be the male one night and the other one pretending to be the female the next night and all that type of thing. Mass confusion. All right, sexual confusion. That's part of their entire plan. Now, then they put them into a military-type situation and send them off to be slaughtered together. I mean, and they were not going to go. A lot of people in the old traditional armies, you have to always watch the soldiers. Why? Because the soldiers are always looking for a way to get out of there and do what? When soldiers say they want to go AWOL, absent without leave, in most armies, in the army that I was in, you almost could know where to look for them when they would send out the military police. They say, oh, Willie has gone AWOL. All right. Well, where did Willie go when he went AWOL? Oh, you know where he went. He went looking for Bessie May because he hadn't seen her in a long time. And they haven't let him off to go see her. He can't get a pass. So he ran off. He went absent without leave. So they go to Bessie May's house. Bessie May is a female, naturally. And so there's Willie. And they caught him and they brought him back. Now, what does that tell you? Hey, suppose we fixed it so that Willie, we can change his state of mind so that Willie is no longer looking for Bessie May. Willie is looking for John over there in the next bunk. Okay? So therefore, he's not going nowhere. He'll make an excellent soldier forever because he and John, Willie and John, will go off fighting together side by side, and they will definitely stick by each other in a combat situation, and we can get them both killed at the same time. And after all, black lives don't matter. They're both black. They're both dead in the foxhole. I mean, hooray. We get a twofer, without all the extra expense. Mm-hmm. We don't have to worry about anybody running off. We got all the black females in the same unit. They all sleeping around with each other, licking and laughing and whatnot, or whatever they do, and they'll die in each other's arms by the boatload. And that is a part of our long-range plan, because these people don't have no long-range plan for themselves.
Wow.
Because they don't think about anything except just their little short-range plans that they make day by day.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your question, caller. Thank you very much. Mr. Fuller, we have a question from African Queen, and she states, I want to start by saying I haven't read your books yet. I really wish I have, but they're not available here in the Caribbean islands yet, and I hope it will be soon. But I do listen to every one of Mr. Fuller's suggestions. My question is, why did the white supremacists make such an effort to hide world history, especially people of color history? If they're so powerful, why did they do that? And thank you, Mr. Fuller. I appreciate you, because I've never thought of racism as a global system until I came across your work. And you also let me understand it and how it works. So thank you very much. Mr. Fuller?
Well, the question was about hiding history.
Yeah, my question is, why did the white supremacists make such an effort to hide world history, especially people of color? If they're so powerful, why did they do that?
Oh, because they are powerful. They're powerful enough to hide the history. So they say, you people don't need any history anyway. I mean, if you know too much about history, if you study your black history, and then you connect it with white history, then you know too much about how we operate. See, the white supremacists, and here in Black History Month, the white supremacists watch how black history is taught. Because as long as black people are just bragging about what we did 10,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago or whenever, the white supremacists have no problem with that. What they don't want you to discover is where the mistakes were made when black people start interacting with white people. Black people made horrendous mistakes. The white supremacists understand this. So that's the part. See, they don't mind you knowing history. When you say history, how far back does history go? It goes back to the beginning of time and even before the beginning of time. If you're talking about actual history, according to logic, you're even talking about before the beginning of time. See, so how much history do you need to study? So the white supremacists looked at it and said, oh, sure, we'll let these people have black history. They can have black history running out of their ears as long as it doesn't tell them anything about what to do about their interaction with the system of white supremacy.
Wow. Okay. Have a statement here, Mr. Fuller, from Richard L. He says, hello, sir. I must say Mr. Fuller makes sense in areas we all know who are black, yet his code book theory is pointless. After all, he's been pushing it for decades to no avail. A code is to be kept in secret from the enemy, not advertised to them so they would know what to look for, what your strategies against them would be. When you are confronted with racism, no word of mouth or gift of gab gonna cloak you from their intention on how they will handle you at that moment. The Bible is the greatest code book of all to me on man's humanity unto man, and it doesn't change a damn thing in just the eyes of racist hatred. Just my opinion, book are written and laws are to be changed after human sacrifice to cause, not before, whatever that meant. I just read them the way that a person has written them. TalkTainmentradio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sundays. Evenings and blogs and podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentradio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We have more of your calls, more letters, all that and much, much more coming up next on TalkTainmentradio.com.
By Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Go ahead. Make my day.
You got the power.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is the co-host of the compensatory concept, Mr. Bobby, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We're speaking with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and he opened the show by speaking of Black History Month, black culture, white culture. You can't basically separate the two if you're going to talk about black history. Anyway, you can call in at 1-877-932-9766. You need to get a copy of his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which is a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And you can get that by going to ProduceJustice.com. That's ProduceJustice.com. And in addition to that, there is a word guide there for your purchase. And if you'd like, you can purchase both of them. That's ProduceJustice.com, ProduceJustice.com. And thank you for your donations. Keep them coming in so that we can have a 2-hour program and do the funding for the full year. And you can do that by going to K&E World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio 43206, care of the compensatory concept. No personal checks will be accepted, but money orders and bank checks will be accepted. That is bank, B-A-N-K, bank checks will be accepted, and we will email your receipt, and all donations are final. Before we go to the phone lines, Mr. Fuller, we have a question from Kevin, and he says, hello, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. I hear Mr. Fuller say all white people are not racist. They all benefit from racism, and racism continues. I was taught the rogue is just as guilty as the theft. Does this not apply in this case?
Well, if I understand the question here again, I have made the statement that it's logical to assume that all white people are not racist, because you have senile white people, you have infantile white people. It's not logical to think that a person who doesn't know one color from another is a racist. There are white babies all over the world. See, you have to be trained to be a racist. That just doesn't come automatically. You have to be trained to dominate and mistreat people based on color. That calls for training, like in the stage play and in the movie South Pacific. There's a song about that. You have to be carefully taught, very carefully, strategically taught how to be a racist. And there are all kinds of ways to teach now. Sometimes you don't even have to mention it. You can just show by osmosis, or what they call example, how to go about being a racist. What a racist does, what a racist doesn't do, what a racist says, what a racist doesn't say, under different conditions, to different people, under different circumstances. It's a whole science, see what I mean? So, therefore, it's logical to assume that not all people, because when you say all, that takes in quite a bit. See,
Yes.
that all, A-L-L? No. A person who used to be a racist, and I've said this on this program before, elderly white person who used to be a Klansman, a person who went around telling people, I believe in racism. I believe that in order for the world to have any kind of order to it, I mean, if you're a white person, you ought to be a racist. Otherwise, the world is just going to go to hell in a handbasket. I mean, because the rest of these people walking around on this planet, all these people of color, they just don't have the qualities that a white person has. A white person has administrative ability that these black people, these dark-skinned people, all these black, brown, red, and yellow people would just be bumping into things and stumbling over things and not knowing what to do about anything and couldn't solve a single problem unless there's some white person around. And the record of their entire history shows this. And this is what the white supremacists say all the time. Now, that same white man who says this, as he gets older, he may lose the ability to tell one color from another. He may wind up in a wheelchair, and he gets what you call Alzheimer's and all like that. And you say, yeah, that guy's a racist. I remember him. I remember he used to make speeches all about black people and all like that. I can't stand him. He's a racist. But when you actually find out that the person can't tell one color from another, or a spoon from a fork, that person is not a racist.
Oh,
he used to be.
He used to be.
Yeah, just like the baby. I mean, the baby hadn't been taught yet. All right? So how do you handle this in a practical sense? The code says if a white person is able to be a racist, underline able, then that white person is, according to the code, automatically a racist suspect. You suspect the person could be one.
Okay.
Why? Because there's no master list of who is a racist and who is not. That's the logic.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines. You're on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Caller number, what is it, line number one? Line number one. You're now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead.
Somebody can say genocide was committed against them, but they basically going to mean the same thing.
Thank you for your comment. Before we go to the phone line, back to the phone line, Mr. Fuller, I have a question from Andrew, and he said, or this is his comment. He said, "I'm writing to clear up what I think the gentleman may have been talking about when he mentioned extermination on last week's show. True enough, extermination does mean the elimination of all people. However, I don't think that the caller is talking about extermination of all non-white people on the planet, which is what Mr. Fuller is correctly stating as not being the white supremacist intent. What I think the caller is saying is that in this particular area of the planet, just here, so-called America or the United States, the white supremacists may have an agenda to exterminate either a very large number or all black people, or sooner than what most might expect. Whether he says it's true or not remains to be seen. However, if it were to happen to black people in this particular area of the planet, the global system of white supremacy would still be able to function with what I believe would be a more refined operation." And then Mr. Fuller, he asked this question: "Can you please illustrate what a constructive conversation between an white person and a non-white person might look like? Who should initiate, and what are the boundaries?"
No boundaries, and anybody can initiate. In fact, it should be an ongoing discussion between white people and non-white people throughout this planet. That should be the priority discussion. All these other discussions should be secondary. The priority discussion between white people and non-white people on this planet should be how to replace the system of white supremacy in an orderly fashion with the system of justice, which means justice meaning what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, white or non-white, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Underline the word constructive help. See, in other words, sometimes people come around saying they're trying to help, but they're not trying to help you do anything of constructive value. They're trying to help you do something that's going to be non-constructive. Mm-hmm. The white supremacists are kind of famous for that. They say, well, we want to help. But when they help, and you look at what they're helping you to do, you say, now, wait a minute, is this constructive? Is this something that's going to make me a better person? You always come around when you're going to help me to do something that's going to cause more confusion or more destruction and whatnot. Getting me to glorify guns and all this type of thing. I mean, this is what you're going to help me to do? I mean, why not help me to build something sometime? Why not help me to clean up the water or something like that? Help me to do anything of constructive value. See, so we should have these ongoing discussions in fine detail and go through every area of activity. Hello?
Yeah, we're still here, yeah.
Yes. And so, yes, we should have these ongoing discussions with the objective of everybody becoming what the code book calls universal man, universal woman, meaning people who are 100% constructive. Never non-constructive.
Never non-constructive. Okay.
Right.
So TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go, and you can download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is the compensatory concept with your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. You can call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com. And don't forget, the donations are to be made to KNE World Network, Post Office Box 6184, Columbus, Ohio, 43206, in care of the compensatory concept. We will accept money orders or bank check, that's B-A-N-K, bank checks, no personal checks, and we will email you your receipt, and all donations are final. And again, the purpose is to extend the compensatory concept for and an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program, and our goal is to cover 1 year's worth of programming. And before we go to the phone lines, don't forget to get the copy of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. This is the book by Neely Fuller, Jr., and you can get it by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. All right, to the phone lines, line number 2. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr.
Yes, hi, and good morning. I have a 2-part question.
You got to make it fast because we're running out of time.
Great. Okay, my question to Mr. Fuller is, does belief trump logic?
Does belief trump logic, Mr. Fuller?
Does belief trump logic?
Yes, sir. That's what the caller said.
Well, it depends on, whether the belief is logical. If they both go together, belief and logic, I mean, they should go together, but it depends on what person you're talking about. Sometimes a person believes things that are not logical, or a person can believe things that are. So it's just a matter of minute by minute, it depends on the circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, the reason why I bring up that question is because it appears to me that black people, well, you talk about logic. Logic is important. Logic comes with the universe. Logic is about cause and effect. And the reality shows, our history shows, that black people are not logical, right? I believe, and don't you believe as well, or wouldn't it seem to be the case, that belief in black people trumps logic? And black people may not, simply may not believe the logic that you are expounding, or what Dr. Welsing expounds. You guys are very logical, very rational, but we know from human behavior that belief can hijack or trump logic. And so fundamentally what we may be dealing with is not an issue of trying to reach black people through logic. We may need to reach black people through belief, because it's belief that they are operating under and therefore doing irrational things.
Mr. Fuller, your response?
If I understand what's being said, all it boils down to is, I use a sort of a slogan, follow the logic, which means that you believe that everything has a cause and everything has an effect. I mean, fire just doesn't, just something that you look at and you see that, and you call it fire. Fire does something, and you find out what fire does if you stick your hand in it.
Yes,
fire
but if
burns,
I believe,
all right?
Yeah, if I burn my hand on day one, I stick my hand in fire and it burns me, and then I'm like, oh, I can see it burns me. But if I'm the type of person who believes that on day two, if I stick my hand in the fire, it's not going to burn me, I'm going to stick my hand in the fire, because belief trumps the logic that I experienced on day one. Black people keep on doing the same mistakes, and for 600 years. The reason why they don't seem to learn, is it possible that the reason why they don't seem to learn is because they operate on this belief that things are going to get better, that this is not how things are supposed to be.
Mr. Fuller?
It's going to work out. It's a belief.
That's why I keep saying, if black people start, you're using two words here, belief and logic.
Yeah,
if black people, what I'm trying to do, even with myself, is to have all of my beliefs be logical, meaning tap into the laws of the universe. Fire will burn, water is wet, regardless of what anybody says. To the contrary, which the white supremacists experts are doing just that. They'll have black people believe in things that are simply not true. See, so all you do is just look for the truth in anything. Always look for the truth, because they are experts at spreading falsehood. They'll have you believe in things that simply are not true.
Absolutely. Thank you for your call, caller. Let's go to line number 3. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Quickly, what is your question?
Yes, sir. This is Calvin calling from Georgia. Mr. Fuller, a white person or a so-called white supremacist or a race suspect that sits back and watch the mistreatment of blacks, are they just as guilty as the white supremacists? And also, do they need a copy of your book? I know this book is for victims, but does the white supremacists, do they need a copy of this book as well?
Good question. Mr. Fuller?
Oh, the white supremacists are very familiar with my book. I mean, the white supremacists are familiar with everything that black people are familiar with. There's nothing that black people know that the white supremacists don't know. That's why black people are subject to the white supremacists, because the white supremacists know more than their victims. That goes without saying. They know and understand more than their victims. Conquerors always are smarter than their victims.
Yes.
Otherwise, their victims wouldn't be victims. Okay? So they know all of these things, but they know the code and all like that. And like someone alluded to before, they say that, well, what we need is a secret code. Well, what is logic shows me is that there's no way to be under the system of white supremacy and have secrets from the white supremacists. The white supremacists, they know what black people's secrets are, which means they're not secrets.
Which means they're not secrets.
And
yes,
so,
sir.
so we need a code that, even though the white supremacists are aware, like they are, they have read, they're familiar with my book. In fact, I've given my book to some white people who said they wanted to figure me out. In fact, one of the first persons to look at it was a white person and say, I want to know how you think, Fuller. So I got a copy of your book. Okay. But I wrote the book with the understanding in my mind that yes, but if you are a white supremacist, it won't work for you.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work for the victim, but it will not work for you, even though you're looking right at it and you know what the strategy is and all like that. It still won't work for you. Why? Because it's computerized not to work for you.
All righty. Thank you for your call. Let's go to line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr.
Question, please. Mr. Fuller, when it comes to like other non-white people, like Mexicans, Asians, red, brown, yellow people, what have you, when they start practicing white supremacy, how do you deal with them? Do you deal with them like white supremacists? Is that what the code means? I say that because recently I saw something online where another non-white person, she wasn't black, made a very slandering thing about black people. So how do you deal with, this red, brown, yellow folks who want to mistreat black people? That's one thing. The other thing is, is there a recommended way of reading your book other than reading it? Do you recommend a certain? I have to bite it off in pieces. I'm finding because it's so deep and mind blowing. And the last question is, can you talk about why you're not associated with these donations that Mr. Bobby keep asking for?
Good question. Good question.
Okay, well, I'll take that first question first, and I'll try to remember the last one. Sometimes it slips me. Now, the first one is about the other non-white people, other than what we call black. Well, see, they're just shades of black. That's the way the code logically looks at it. Black is basic, and brown, red, yellow, beige, tan people, they're just shades of black people, really. So all black people, under the system of white supremacy, have a tendency to mistreat each other. Why? Because the white supremacists have orchestrated that. That's a part of the package. Keep those black, brown, red, yellow people, keep them, all of the non-white people, fighting and squabbling among themselves. Just keep all of their attention directed toward each other when it comes to any kind of hostility. And when they come around us, it's all love in arms and whatnot. Or they'll go along with it, or even if they don't really want to go along with it, they'll go along with it because it's in their best interest to do so. That's what white supremacy means.
Okay.
So you just take that in stride. That's a given. Black people are slaughtering each other. Black people who call themselves solidly black. In every town, in every city, that's what we look forward to. Running up and down the street, killing each other. That's a part of our culture. And then when the white supremacists mention something about it, well, you black people talking about Black Lives Matter, you're killing each other. And they say, well, yeah, we don't want to talk about that. We'll talk about that later. You killed one of us last night, and we're going to demonstrate. See, we all confused. The white supremacists know that. They say these people's minds are so sick, and they don't even know that they're sick. So what we have to do is minimize conflict among each other. I'm talking about what to do about things. And every contact that you make with every other non-white person, try to make it as constructive as possible. Mm-hmm. Once it's no longer constructive, break contact. That's what we have to learn to do.
Okay. Now, would you go ahead and address her last part of the question about why you are not associated with the donation part that Talktainment Radio is doing?
Oh, because I don't know what that's all about. And another thing, I don't accept donations. I try to sell a book, and then I use the funds from my book to turn it into trying to expand and refine and better the sales of the book. That's it, because that's my mission. That's the mission that I have chosen, you might say. I'm not trying to stack up money, and then, just sit there and look at it, and then later on, if the pile gets big enough, just become a philanthropist and go around handing dollar bills out the back of a limousine and all like that. I don't see any. That's not logical.
Right.
It's logical to try to do what I'm trying to do, solve the race problem.
Right.
That's what I set out to do.
So you just do the book portion.
Just do the book portion,
right.
And let other people do the other portion and whatnot.
And in case you didn't know, Mr. Fuller, the purpose of the donations, and I read this every week, but I'll read it again. The purpose is to extend the compensatory concept for and A&D, an additional hour, making it a 2-hour program. Our goal is to cover 1 year's worth of programming. So now everybody would know. That was a very good question by our caller. Do we have time to take that call? We don't? No? Okay, sorry, caller. We'll have to get you next week. Sorry about that, but try to remember to call in. That's one of the reasons why we want to go to 2 hours, and your donations to the program will cause it to be extended for that hour and funded for the full year. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. That is radio.